The alien soldiers, members of a species known throughout the galaxy for their military prowess, prepared to descend onto the human colony. Their mission was simple: crush the last remnants of resistance on this backwater planet. These humans, rumored to be rebellious and unpredictable, had caused enough trouble already. But the alien commander was unconcerned. His soldiers, armed with advanced technology, impenetrable armor, and years of combat experience, would make quick work of any opposition. As they flew toward the surface, the aliens conversed over the comms, sharing dismissive remarks about their target. Humans, they said, were overrated. Primitive, barely worthy of galactic attention. Their only redeeming trait was their capacity for chaos, a trait that was exaggerated in most military reports. The stories of human ingenuity and lethal unpredictability were dismissed as myths, scare tactics designed to build fear in the ranks. The commander himself had heard tales of humans surviving impossible conditions, even defeating superior enemies. But to him, it was nothing more than folklore, whispered in the dark corners of barracks. Their landing was uneventful. The ship's doors opened, and the elite soldiers stepped out into the quiet of an eerily empty landscape. The surroundings were desolate, not at all what they had expected. There were no defense systems, no barricades, not even any visible signs of life. It was as if the humans had vanished. Pathetic, one soldier scoffed. They must have fled as soon as they heard we were coming. The commander nodded in agreement. This was typical behavior for lesser species: run and hide when faced with real strength. He ordered the squad to fan out and secure the area. Their scanners showed no immediate threats. The buildings, scattered around like skeletal remains, stood silent. They split into teams, each covering different sectors of the seemingly abandoned city. As they moved through the empty streets, the alien soldiers remained at ease, confident in their superiority. Their reconnaissance indicated no resistance. No fighters were seen, no traps detected. The aliens, certain of their dominance, operated under the assumption that they had already won. But something didn't sit right with the commander. The absence of any visible resistance was unusual, even for a supposedly primitive race. Had the humans really fled, leaving everything behind without a fight? His instincts, honed over years of battle, told him something was off, but he dismissed the feeling. After all, what could these fragile creatures possibly do against the might of his forces? Then it began. The first attack came with terrifying precision. The soldiers in one of the teams had barely stepped inside an abandoned industrial complex when the shadows around them came to life. A barrage of projectiles, sharp and silent, flew from the darkness. 2 soldiers fell immediately, their advanced armor pierced in vulnerable spots, as if their enemies knew exactly where to strike. The remaining soldiers fired blindly into the shadows, their high-tech weapons lighting up the space with flashes of energy, but they hit nothing. The attackers had vanished. The commander heard the panic over the comms. His soldiers, disoriented and confused, struggled to identify their attackers. Every time they thought they had a target in sight, it was gone, melting back into the shadows. The humans were nowhere and everywhere at once, striking with precision and disappearing before the aliens could react. A second team reported a similar ambush. Humans, using guerrilla tactics, hit them from above, taking out soldiers in swift, calculated strikes. The aliens' superior technology, designed for open warfare, proved cumbersome in these close-quarters, urban environments. Their armor, heavy and built for durability, made them slow. The humans, by contrast, were agile and relentless. The commander ordered his troops to regroup, but the ambushes continued. Every street corner, every building seemed to hold another surprise. The humans weren't just fighting, they were playing a psychological game. The aliens, who had expected to steamroll the human resistance, found themselves on the defensive. It was as though the humans had prepared for this confrontation in advance, using the environment against them, manipulating the terrain to give themselves the advantage. Panic began to set in among the alien ranks. Soldiers, who had never known fear in battle, now felt a creeping dread. Their scanners were malfunctioning, unable to pinpoint the humans' positions. The humans moved like ghosts, using their intimate knowledge of the terrain and tactics the aliens had never encountered. This was not the disorganized, chaotic resistance they had anticipated. This was coordinated, tactical warfare. And they were losing. The commander, now fully aware of the danger, ordered a retreat. His once confident forces were battered and disoriented, barely able to escape the trap they had walked into. As they pulled back, the humans ceased their attacks, vanishing as swiftly as they had appeared. The silence returned, but now it felt oppressive, filled with the weight of their failure. They had lost soldiers, the first in what was supposed to be an easy operation. The commander's arrogance had been shattered. These humans were far more dangerous than the galaxy had led them to believe. The rumors he had so easily dismissed now seemed terrifyingly real. His soldiers, battered and bloodied, looked to him for guidance, but all he could do was contemplate the unsettling truth. The humans were not the fragile, primitive race they had assumed. They were hunters, and the aliens had just become their prey. The alien soldiers gathered in what remained of their forward camp, licking their wounds and trying to make sense of the chaos. Their armor was dented, their morale shattered. The commander paced, reviewing the damage reports, his mind racing. This was supposed to have been an easy mission, but the humans had defied every expectation. They were nothing like the primitive savages the galactic reports had painted them to be. These humans fought with a lethal cunning that the aliens had never encountered. He ordered his remaining forces to take a more strategic approach. This time, they would advance carefully, methodically sweeping the area for traps. The soldiers spread out, scanning every inch of the ground, walls, and even the sky for hidden dangers. But no matter how meticulous they were, the humans were always one step ahead. Hidden explosives were triggered in seemingly random places, tearing through the ranks and causing panic. Snipers, camouflaged so well they seemed to merge with the environment, picked off soldiers one by one. When the aliens tried to return fire, their targets had already vanished. Every corner of this unfamiliar terrain was a potential death trap, and the aliens had no idea where the next attack would come from. Their superior technology was useless against enemies they couldn't see. Worse still, the humans had mastered the art of disappearing into their environment, becoming invisible predators in a landscape that seemed to bend to their will. The aliens, with their clunky armor and advanced weapons, were fighting against shadows. There was no direct confrontation, no glorious battle they had prepared for. Instead, the humans struck fast and hard, then vanished into the night. As the aliens advanced further into the city, they found themselves caught in a deadly maze of human traps and ambushes. One by one, their numbers dwindled, and with each loss, their paranoia grew. Every step felt like walking into another trap. The tension was unbearable. The alien soldiers were no longer the hunters, they had become the prey. In a desperate attempt to regain control, the commander tried to re-establish communication with the other squads. But the humans had anticipated this. Their communication systems were disrupted, and strange voices began to echo through their radios. At first, it seemed like static, but soon, the words became clear. Human voices, calm and unsettling, whispered in their ears, feeding them misinformation, giving orders that led to more casualties. It was a psychological game, and the humans were masters at it. Messages of doubt and fear crept through the alien ranks. "You're all going to die here," one voice said, chilling in its certainty. The soldiers knew it was a trick, but the seed of fear had been planted. It festered in their minds, eating away at the confidence that had once defined them. The humans didn't just want to defeat the aliens, they wanted to break them. The psychological warfare became as intense as the physical battles. The aliens' once unified force was now splintered, each soldier looking over their shoulder, expecting an attack from any direction. Decoys led them on wild chases through the ruins, only to be met with traps or ambushes at every turn. Soldiers fell into pits, were snared in nets, or found themselves surrounded by explosive devices that detonated with horrifying precision. The constant threat of unseen enemies and the eerie voices in their heads began to unravel the aliens' mental fortitude. The humans' mastery of fear as a weapon was unlike anything the aliens had ever encountered. Their tactics were designed not just to defeat but to make the aliens question their own strength, their own superiority. These humans, who the aliens had assumed to be simple and weak, were far more dangerous than the galaxy had ever suggested. The commander, once a figure of stoic confidence, now found himself grappling with uncertainty. His soldiers, hardened veterans of countless campaigns, were being hunted by an enemy they had never even considered a threat. They had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. The realization was bitter, but undeniable. After several more failed engagements, the alien forces were decimated. The losses mounted, and with each casualty, the commander's doubt grew. His once bold assertions about human primitiveness now seemed like the ramblings of a fool. The humans were playing a different game entirely, one that the aliens had never prepared for. Their technology and training were useless here, against an enemy that knew the terrain, knew how to fight in ways the aliens had never imagined. His remaining soldiers looked to him for guidance, but even he wasn't sure if they would make it off this planet alive. The situation was deteriorating quickly. Fear and confusion had taken root in the alien ranks. The soldiers were no longer fighting to win, they were fighting to survive, to escape the relentless traps and mind games set by the humans. The alien commander, once filled with bravado, now prepared for what he feared would be their final stand. The humans, who had so thoroughly outwitted them at every turn, were closing in. His forces were scattered, their communications in disarray, and their morale crushed. He had come to this planet expecting an easy victory. Now, he wasn't even sure if any of them would leave it alive. As the soldiers prepared themselves for another round of human ambushes, they couldn't shake the growing realization that they had been completely outmatched, not by superior firepower, but by an enemy whose greatest strength was their mind. The humans had shown them something terrifying, something the aliens had never believed possible. They were not fighting mere soldiers. They were fighting hunters. And the aliens were running out of time. The alien soldiers stood ready for their final assault, their numbers thinned, their pride wounded, but their determination rekindled by desperation. The humans had proven to be far more cunning and dangerous than anticipated, but the aliens still believed they could crush the resistance with one decisive blow. They launched their last offensive, pouring all their remaining firepower into the humans' main base. Explosions rocked the area as the aliens breached the outer defenses, their war machines storming forward, seeking to overwhelm the human fighters in one final push. But the humans had been waiting. As the aliens advanced, they walked into a perfectly orchestrated trap. The humans had prepared for this assault, luring the aliens into a false sense of confidence. Suddenly, the battlefield shifted. Explosives hidden beneath the ground detonated, taking out entire squads. Snipers, positioned in seemingly impossible locations, picked off key alien officers. The human counterattack was swift, surgical, and brutal. The alien soldiers, expecting to fight a frontal battle, found themselves facing an enemy that used the terrain as a weapon. The humans fought without hesitation, exploiting every vulnerability in the aliens' defenses. They used guerrilla tactics, setting ambushes, retreating into shadows only to strike again when the aliens least expected it. The once orderly battlefield descended into chaos as the humans pushed the aliens into a desperate retreat. The humans weren't simply defending, they were hunting. Each step the aliens took forward felt like a misstep. Each attack they launched was met with a counter they had not foreseen. Their superior technology was rendered useless in the unpredictable, ever-shifting environment. The humans had mastered their world and turned every inch of it into a weapon. The alien commander, watching his forces fall apart, finally began to understand what they were truly up against. It wasn't just that humans were adept at combat. It wasn't even their ingenuity in warfare that terrified him now. It was something deeper, something primal. Humans adapted faster than any species he had ever encountered. They learned from every mistake, turning each loss into a new strategy. In the midst of battle, the commander realized that the humans lacked the brute strength of many galactic species, the technological advancements of others, or the natural combat instincts his soldiers had been bred with. But they had something far more dangerous: adaptability and relentless resolve. These humans could take any situation, any disadvantage, and twist it to their favor. They were not bound by honor or tradition. They fought with a savage intelligence that his species had never anticipated. As the commander watched his soldiers fall, he saw the full depth of humanity's lethal nature. They weren't fighting for glory or conquest. They were fighting for survival. And in the face of extinction, humans had no equal. They would use every tool, every resource, and every ounce of their willpower to ensure they came out on top. The alien soldiers, trained to fight predictable wars against species with rules and structured battle plans, were being torn apart by humans who thrived in chaos. Humans fought with a kind of vicious ingenuity that was unsettling. They knew how to manipulate the environment, how to disorient their enemies, and how to strike where it hurt the most. They fought dirty, without hesitation, exploiting every opportunity with brutal precision. There was no mercy, no restraint. It became clear to the alien commander that humans didn't fight to win by traditional standards. They fought to survive at all costs. The battle was no longer about strategy or skill. It was about who could endure, who could outlast, and who could be more ruthless. And in that game, the humans were unmatched. The tide of battle had turned completely. The alien soldiers, once the pride of their empire, were now being systematically hunted down. Their advanced weaponry lay scattered and useless, their morale shattered. The humans were relentless, pressing their advantage without mercy. What had started as a routine invasion had turned into a nightmare the alien commander could never have imagined. Realizing that the battle was lost, the alien commander signaled a retreat. The few surviving soldiers, broken and demoralized, pulled back, abandoning their equipment and comrades in their desperation to escape. As they fled, the alien commander couldn't help but reflect on everything he had learned during the fight. He had entered this conflict confident that his species was superior. After all, they had conquered countless worlds, subjugated dozens of species, and stood as one of the most feared forces in the galaxy. Yet here, against these humans, they had been utterly defeated. The humans were not to be underestimated. They were something far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The commander sent a final message to his superiors, a warning: humans were not a species to provoke lightly. They were not the primitive savages the galaxy believed them to be. They were something far worse, creatures who could adapt to any threat, who could turn even their greatest weaknesses into strengths. They were survivors, born of a world that had tested them to their limits. And once they set their sights on survival, they would stop at nothing. As the last of the alien forces retreated into the skies, the commander could only imagine what would happen if the rest of the galaxy made the same mistake they had. Humans were not the galaxy's deadliest killers because of their strength, their technology, or their numbers. They were the deadliest because they never stopped fighting, and they never, ever gave up. And that, more than anything, made them the most dangerous species in the universe.